Firstly, my father was against architecture. Okay, and then architecture करने के बाद when I came into visualization, that was another shock to him.
1 year or so, my mom was like, okay, COVID is done now, start giving interviews, because she did not supported what I was going to do. Because this is not a traditional job to do, or यहाँ पे how you can get money, how you can earn money. There was no source.
At one point of time, I thought when I turn 30, I will have a set practice. I'll have like 6 people working with me. And even today, we are at a stage where we have started just now.
I was literally pushed to not be in traditional practice.
It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to feel low. It's okay to question yourself why you're doing it. But I think second day, if you're starting, you should start fresh and forget the night and do something great again.
I think success looks glamorous for the others who see us, you know.
Also, till the time
I
you
still
reach
don't
there,
feel I've reached
from the step
but
1 to
whatever.
step 100, you feel nice, okay, कि यहाँ जाना है, but एक बार वहाँ पहुँच गए, हमको और ऊपर जाना.
For us, I think for us, success is ugly.
Then I can tell people that it's okay. You know, you'll manage. You'll sort of figure your path, and there'll never be a point, to be honest, that what you plan will happen. For some, it does happen, for the lucky ones, and I think it's better if it doesn't, because that is when you actually venture into something that you like.
Because I know for sure that a lot of younger generation, they feel very, once they graduate, they feel like, oh my god, like what do I do now? So I'll just start with like a basic introduction. We'll all do like a basic rounds of introduction, because it might go on the Instagram channel. I'm Tarjani Samani. I'm an architect slash writer slash design researcher from Mumbai. Um, that's like describing the technical details of what I do. But at the heart, I aspire to be a storyteller who will communicate ideas around our profession to a broader audience. So what generally happens is architects tend to like speak in their own niche and cocoon, and I hope to like break free of it. Um, I graduated in 2018, worked in practice for 2.5 years, did the entire thing of like, participating in design competitions, tender, working drawing, handling sites. But I realized that my calling lies more towards research and writing. And that's where I also pursued my master's at Bauhaus, Germany in design research. Again, again an urge to like break free from the architect's master bubble. So I had peers who were industrial designers, sociologists, feminist urban researchers, every single bit of it. And yeah, here I am with my hope that we learn to see that being an architect is way beyond just drafting and traditionally like constructing buildings. And that's where this entire thing has come on to be. Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. So I'm Rajat. So I graduated in 2017. I graduated from Ayojan School of Architecture, and Rajesh was my faculty there only. So since I was in second year, so basically now what I do is I'm a 3D visualizer, and I have my own 3D visualization studio which goes by the name Rajat Arora Visualizations, and I've been running this since 2019. So I guess it's been around 6 years now. And 2 years I worked after my graduation in two different architecture firms. But I felt that what we study in our academic life, this is what I felt, that it is much more interesting and much more innovative and challenging as compared to what we found in most of the offices. That is typical, old school work. So, and I used to freelance in this 3D renderings and everything since the second year of my college life, academic life. And I also used to freelance for Rajesh sir as well. So this was something which used to, keep me alive at night. I wake up at night. I used to work on these renders and all. So it used to fascinate me a lot. So when I was in my second office, say it was about, I guess, April 2019. So I just made up my mind to go with this field and continue as a visualizer and not as an architect, because this is something which gives me more fun and it makes me feel much more alive, much more passionate towards doing it. So since then, I have been doing this.
Wow, that is such an important thing you said, makes me feel alive.
Yeah,
Because I feel like we can push our creative energy the best wherein, like, we intrinsically feel to do something. Um,
exactly.
and a lot of burnout also happens when, like, there's a disconnect
Yes,
between that.
it was because a lot of things matter in when you are doing something you do not like. So and because there was this distance and everything, so 12 hours into the office life, and then you're not feeling happy with the work you're doing. So it used to be a lot of burnout.
So interesting. Thank you, Rajat. Who wants to go next?
I can go.
Okay.
So hi guys, I'm Sagar. I run a page called f.y.i.arch on Instagram, now also on LinkedIn, on YouTube. And I graduated in 2016 from Sagar College of Architecture, Pune. Then I left Pune, came back to my hometown, which is Varda, but now I am based out of Nagpur.
Okay.
And once I graduated, I worked as a BIM architect in a multinational company here in Nagpur itself, but we have projects in US, UK, somewhere.
Hmm.
For 3.5 years, we worked there, but something was not right, which I felt. But I had uh, never had plans to become a content creator or a design influencer that we call nowadays. So I had never had plans, but I always had a calling there because I always saw these channels like TVF, AIB, and all
Hmm.
these channels in 2016, 2015, they were growing. And I always felt that I should also become one, but there was not a plan somewhere that how I can do it or will I be doing it. But all these happened. COVID came along, and I decided that before COVID, I would be resigning from my office to start my own architecture practice. I planned that I would go to my some of my seniors' office and I'll understand how they work, how they take up projects and everything. Since I was in BIM architecture and it was a MNC, I didn't have a background of getting a knowledge of traditional Indian practices which happen in India. So I decided let's leave the job now because that's the right time. I was like 25, 26, and that's the right time now. If I start practice by end of 30, 35, maybe I have a good practice and a good firm. So I left the job and COVID happened in 9 days. So I was sitting at home, कुछ भी काम नहीं था मेरे पास, and I was like कि there were no interviews also lined up. Anything was not going to happen. On the second day, I started my page called FYR, which is called For Your Information Architecture. For a year, I did it as a time pass because घर पे ही बैठ के काम करना था. So there was no other thing to do for me. So and I was good at social media in my circle. So I was doing that stuff and around 1 year or so, my mom was like, okay, COVID is done now, start giving interviews because she did not supported what I was going to do. Because this is not a traditional job to do, or यहाँ पे how you can get money, how you can earn money. There was no source. I think in 2020 I started. Yeah. So 2020, 21, this was not a very serious thing then, still then. I started it. I slowly started liking it and found a business out of it. Now my mom is proud that I'm doing it. She's not behind me like कि चलो go for a job or something. And since 2 or 3 years now, I've shown her what's the potential, true potential of social media. I'm doing it. Now we are on LinkedIn also. We are on YouTube and Instagram as well. And we work with several brands across India. Me being in Nagpur, I stay here because of peace of mind. I don't like to live in a metro city. For me, it's a peace of mind, but all my clients are outside Nagpur. So I travel a lot. I go to exhibitions. I do media partnership with exhibitions. And as Rajat said, it's a fun calling, and it's fun what you do because the thing which keeps you happy, I think you should do it. Nowadays, we see that people run towards money a lot. I think more than going towards money, I think it's the happiness which gets you will lead you to more money maybe in future. That's it.
Super interesting, Sagar. And at one point, I started relating a lot because of COVID and similar age and everything. But yeah, instead of like starting anything of my own, I went ahead and did my master's. So, and also you mentioned Varda. It was one of the first projects I got to work on.
Oh
We
wow.
revitalized some. I forgot the name of the street, but it was an urban design proposal, which was
Sevagram.
also yes, 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 yes. Oh God, such a small world.
Yes,
I
yes, yes.
I forgot about it, and the moment you said it, I remembered that. Oh my God, like I've been there.
It's, I think the
And
project is still going on, the work is still going on, but it's good.
yeah, so that thing which you said that being in an office was not working out, then you started with the idea of maybe you'll set up your own office, and then by your early 30s you'll maybe figure things out. But then you did social media. This the pace of social media and how like traditional practice happens is like poles apart, because on social
Yeah.
media like you have to be at it many times, and whereas like as you mentioned, the Vada project is the
Mm.
Sevagram project is still going on.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's even like when I look at like three of you, I also notice like how, because Rajat, for example, mentioned that even if the renders are going on full night, it doesn't like he's happily doing it. And even with you, you mentioned that you like to live in Nagpur, but you have to give a lot of time in traveling. So
Yeah.
time and how you chart out your journey, how you make your vision board is also something I'll ask in the further discussion. It was a good prompt. Thanks, Sagar.
Mhm.
Yeah, over to you, Parnavi.
Yeah, I guess I'm the dinosaur here. So clearly you guys are I mean it doesn't matter, but it's nice to hear and see. Honestly, I teach, so I worked with very young kids, and I don't really feel that whole ageist whatever. But it's nice to sort of be a part of this panel where such young kids have already reached a certain place, which I would have not imagined when I was at your age. So my journey is pretty similar to like Sagar and Rajat. So fresh out of SEPT, like I was a postgraduate out of SEPT, and I was giving a lot of job interviews in Bombay. I knew it was like at that point of time, everybody knew you. If once you're an architect, you have to either start your own practice or you have to do a job. That's a very set standard, कि यही तो, that's what you have to do. And after almost giving, I don't remember the exact number, 12 to 15 interviews, I was frustrated because first of all I was just in that SEP bubble which burst very quickly the moment I started talking to these practices and these architects. I was like, this is not what I want to do. Like, you cannot talk to me in numbers. You have to talk to me about my aspirations as a designer. So that was the biggest demotivator. And after these multiple interviews, I was disheartened. um, and that is when I went back to my mentors at SEPT. And while discussing them, almost like whining and crying and telling them, "Ki, what do? I don't know. This is the path that I thought I'll follow, but I don't think I can work in an office. And I'm new in a city, so I don't know how to start my own practice." So I was like, what am I supposed to do? And then my mentor suggested that you come from a theory and design background. So I have done my master's from SET in theory and design. So he was like, why don't you give teaching a thought? Try it out. Like, one of your senior professors is there under his mentorship. Just start doing it. See if you like it or you don't. And meanwhile, you can continue and figure out what you want to do, whether you want to start your own practice or you want to still work and venture out. So that is when I was actually literally like, the way while swimming, you're pushed into the pool. I was pushed into the academic pool. I had no idea I would do it. I had never imagined I would. But the moment I started teaching, I realized that is what I like. It is my true calling. And I have been teaching since 2012 now. Like, I've been in architecture academics since then. Because of then being in academics, slowly, slowly, I realized a lot of gaps that are there in the architecture education, which led me to start my first entrepreneurial venture, which was called Open Bracket. It was a creative platform where we would organize creative workshops, which were open to all, not necessarily only people from the creative field. And I had a blast. Like I run Open Bracket for 4 years, and it was a new concept in Bombay. So people enjoyed, creative satisfaction was 200%, but somewhere as a business model, it was failing, which I knew. But then, you're too high on your horse to accept the fact that what you're doing is not completely the right way to go. And somewhere, like everybody else, I was scared to call it a business. Now, which I realize it's wrong. Like, of course, you should monetize your skills. Of course, you have to earn money so that you're able to continue what you're doing. If it's interesting, you're not running an NGO, and even an NGO needs money to run. Like, they are funded, so funds have to come. So saying that, my passion keeps me going, I feel when you say that, you're lying, because you can't only function on fashion. There has to be a monetary aspect to it, and Open Bracket didn't have that. And as everybody has gone through, COVID happened. So everybody wanted me to switch to an online mode, which somehow I felt that it doesn't do justice to the kind of workshops we were doing. And through these workshops, I could sort of, call so many artists to Bombay. I worked with them. I did so many different kinds of workshops, and so many non-creative people were happy that something like this is happening in the city, because they're like, "Arey, we always wanted to learn this, but we thought ki baba hum to corporate job wale hain. We don't think we can do this." And Open Bracket sort of gave them that space where they can actually go and see, is this for us, and just try it for fun. It didn't mean anything. It was just an attempt for people to make art and creativity accessible, which generally people don't think it is, because maybe you don't come from that background, or you think you don't understand. But I think everybody is creative inherently in some way or the other. So Open Bracket had to shut. Took me 3 years to accept the fact that my first entrepreneurial baby failed. It failed. It was a big business failure. Um, After that, I became like an actual mother, a parent. So that took a lot of my time. I was still teaching through all of this. Even through COVID, we had our online classes going. So I've never quit teaching. I really enjoy it. I'm still doing it in different capacities. I've taught full time, I've taught as a visiting faculty, I'm still doing visiting teaching. And recently, 3 years ago, um, uh, through multiple conversations that I have with industry experts, with my fellow colleagues in academics, with friends, with students who set out to practice, we realize that, there is a big gap between what architects think architecture is and what general audience thinks about architecture. You know, like we have this constant concern that architects have ki, we are doing such interesting work, but our clients don't understand. And somewhere the seed for Zen, had been planted there. So my partner at Zen, Prithvi, who is also an architect, we both, she had experience in communication, design communication and architecture communication. And somewhere down the line, uh, we never thought that we would start something on our own, but we were helping our friends any which ways. Like we were helping them with communication ideas, to talk about their practice, to talk about their website. We were any which ways doing that, but very informally for friends. And then one fine day, just like, so it's always like a eureka thing. She's like, I'm working, and with your experience in research, writing, academics, architecture for so many years, and my experience in communications, we think we should do it on our own. Like, just give it a try. Because obviously, when you're working with somebody, you always think that it's restricted in some way. You would want to do the same thing in a different way. And that is where we were like, yeah, let's give it a 6 months try, how it goes. And that is how Zen happened. Not overnight per se, through so many years of disappointments. SM, this is not how profession should be. This is not how architect should be. This is not how architecture practice should be. So all these like missing links, we knew we had to do something about it. We had to sort of pitch in somewhere. And that is how Then happened. So Then is basically a communications agency, not marketing, communications agency, where we help architects and designers talk about their brand, their stories, their narratives through various channels. Social media being one of the major ones, but that's not the only platform that we work for our clients. So we do websites, we do social media channels, we do publications for them. We work on the content for websites. We also do competitions, pitch decks, all of that. So basically, any format of communication, we can help a practice do it in the best way possible to try and achieve what they're trying to say. So we're helping them say their story in the best way possible. Because at the heart of it, I think me and Prithvi somewhere have developed decent, research, storytelling, and narrative skills. So that works for us as a forte. And plus, again, I have been with architecture since 2003 now, since my first year of architecture. So again, I don't experience is not always it's never a plus one, 1 + 1 is equal to 2. But yes, it does show you a lot of things. So the more number of years you spend in a certain profession, obviously you learn, you see, and you have opinions and you have ideas, and that is what it is. That is what I bring to the table for Zen. So yeah, that's where Zen is today. So I mean, when Sagar said, okay, by 35 I'm past that. Like I, at one point of time, I had thought when I turn 30, I will have a set practice. I'll have like 6 people working with me. And even today, we are at a stage where we have started just now. So we are like, now what to do? So when my students come up to me with this whole anxiety, they're like, ma'am, what will we do now? We've just graduated. We have to set up. I was like, hold your horses. You don't know what is going to happen 5 years down the line. Yes, we plan for life, but there are curveballs that will come at you. So yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to know that I've gone through those stages and I've survived, and I can tell people that it's okay. You'll manage, you'll sort of figure your path, and there'll never be a point, to be honest, that what you plan will happen. For some it does happen, for the lucky ones, and I think it's better if it doesn't, because that is when you actually venture into something that you like I think for most of us, that is how we found what a true calling is, because what we thought we should do didn't happen. So yeah.
That was so wise, really. Yeah. It made me immediately think that, it's okay to have disappointments, it's okay to have breakdowns, because that
Absolutely.
is what is leading towards the breakthroughs that each of you had. At some point,
Yeah.
you were bold enough, okay, this is not really working for me, and this is what my intuition is telling me to try, and I have to go for it.
Yeah, of
So
course.
yeah,
I mean, yeah.
it I
It's
mean it shows a lot of courage, and I think Rajesh also like texted that it's a lot of resilience.
yeah.
Um, Sorry, you were saying.
No, I mean, yeah, resilience, and also you just what do you call it? At the end of it, when you've tried multiple things, you always know that if you have a certain skill set, you will learn how to work with
Yes.
it, or per se monetize it. And I think
Yes.
that is where most of the people are scared to take that leap. Okay, what do I do with this? And fortunately, we are in an age and time where a lot of channels, or especially social media, that is available to us, that possibility of converting an idea into probably a monetized business is possible. And I consider today's children very lucky because they have it. We had to charter, or we took like 10 years to reach there, which had a lot of tears, a lot of disappointment, and a lot of difficult times, but it's okay. So yeah.
I feel the perspectives have also changed. Like I remember
Yes.
that we were in, I think when we were in college, like second, third year. So I think this happens with everyone in everyone's architecture college. Ki there are some students who do not come to the class, who understand very early ki this is not for us. Like most of the
Yeah.
students leave ड्यूरिंग द फिफ्थ ईयर, ड्यूरिंग द thesis टाइम, और छोड़ देते हैं. सो आई थिंक दैट पर्सपेक्टिव्स, जैसे आई रिमेम्बर तब हमारे पर्सपेक्टिव्स उनको देख के ऐसे होते थे कि यार मतलब दे हैव स्पेंट सो मच मनी एंड व्हाई आर दे लीविंग दिस, बिकॉज वी कुड नेवर अंडरस्टैंड देयर पार्ट कि मे बी इट्स नॉट मेंट फॉर देम. ठीक है, तो बट आफ्टर सम टाइम जब मतलब वी हम खुद उनकी जगह आ गए, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल आफ्टर 2 years ऑफ ग्रेजुएटिंग व्हेन आई फेल्ट दैट दिस इज not something for me, then I understood the perspective कि okay, so उनको शायद वो चीज जल्दी realize हुई and हमें थोड़ी late. And secondly, COVID also played a very important role,
Very.
because before COVID, that typical job life, the typical architecture जो हमें machine की तरह भेज दिया जाता है कॉलेज से निकाल के, you have only the option to either work in a firm or you can start your own. And start your own वाले भी लोग मतलब the percentage of those people is also very less because you need experience to start. But due to COVID, जब everyone, when everything was in lockdown and everyone was at their homes, so this social media played a very big role. You'll see that the boom of these any type of firm, like it's a visualization or a designing or any kind of firm, it took in the COVID period. COVID के बाद Instagram पे the amount of platforms you see before COVID and post COVID are very different. A lot of people started their own journeys during the COVID time.
Mm. Most of the time, I also see that now I run a social media channel, so I have a huge group of students who follow me because I post informative content around
Mhm.
architecture and design. Mostly, they are like they want to pivot, but it is like the societal pressure or the guilt they
Exactly.
have in their mind. Even I had a guilt for a long time that I am not making buildings of brick and mortar, and I'm not going on site visit like everybody is going. But I just wrote an article on LinkedIn few weeks or months ago that now the guilt is finished because now what I'm doing is turned into a business, a real-time business, and I'm doing well at it. It is all because of your self-confidence is needed. But most of the students or practicing architect lack that self-confidence, and फिर वो वही कर रहे हैं because they're doing it just because the society asks them to do a typical job or a typical practice, and they are seeing their peers or their parents who are architects, they're doing the same thing. How
Correct.
they don't have that courage to say them that, okay dad, or okay society, I don't like this particular practice or job and I want to do something different, because our society had put us into age limits. By 30 you should have a house, by 35 you should have kids, by 40 you should have like 10 cr in your account or something. So we have all that things very set, कि यही साल में शादी होनी चाहिए, फिर ये होना चाहिए. Because of that, it's a lot of pressure on people and they cannot decide because of that.
I think architecture में ना things are bit different because see guilt is not just about कि okay जो एक societal जो चल रहा है उसको follow कर, वो तो है ही, वो तो I think वो तो architecture हो या कोई भी अलग field हो, वो हर जगह ही है. But architecture में I think the major guilt which eats up is, see architecture is a very expensive field in academic terms. Okay, lot of sheets you have your expenses are on, lot of printing, lot of sheets, models and all the stationaries and all. And over the 5 years of life, academic fees plus जो आपका extra जाता है, तो at the end your at that time your parents are doing that. So after those 5 years, it's very hard to even convince or your parents ki okay now after we would like to change it, because then these small
Yes.
things also eat. This is not a small thing, but yeah, these things also eat up inside you ki okay
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
spent there a lot of money on this and now we want to change. So that is also one more thing which I think a lot of students are very.
I faced it myself. My mom was not supporting me for 2 years. I just told during my introduction that she asked me to give interviews. I have given interviews while I was creating content. I got the interview. The salary was good, even more than what I was earning as a social media content creator or something. I cracked the interview. I was just about to sign the letter. Okay, I'll be joining the job. This was to 2022,
Hmm.
and I was like, no, I'm not doing it, and I gave it away. I told my mom, it's fine. I am going to do well. I know that I have that self confidence. It is fine. I'll take one more year. That's not a problem. Do not just compare me what everyone is doing or the IT professionals nowadays are earning or something. Don't calculate my talent into that particular thing. And this is how it worked, because I had that courage, I had that confidence in myself. That is what is needed, and that is what I tell students whenever we share this topic with them.
Yeah, I think
I
sorry, I mean, can we continue on this or do you want to like go to the agenda of the day?
Uh, I just wanted to acknowledge what you mentioned in the introduction, because to be very honest, it's very rare for someone to say it in a very transparent manner. Yes, architects, like education and practice, they're very scared to uh, openly talk about the money and time investment that goes into it, and even like the idea of like calling it a business compared to what I see in other fields. Like for example, Sagar is in the design content creation space, but when I meet people who are in lifestyle content creation or a like I कि वो हिचकिचाहट वो दिख आती है, like in the idea of talking about money and time investment and owning your journey, like how even Sagar was describing now. And Parnavi, like you mentioned that even when you had that open bracket venture, it it was a learning curve in a way that okay, it connected to the non-creative. That's where the spark was for you. But yeah, like you realized it was a learning curve that okay, it has to passion and money go hand in hand, because we are responsible a to ourselves also and to our families also. So thank you for saying that out in your introduction, like very transparently in your entire journey. And just to like close the introduction round, Rajat, also what you just mentioned, that in architecture school a lot of people realize that oh, like I don't want to be a full time, like go into traditional mode of practice. A difference that I observed during my masters was in India, like it's a 5 year course, right? So you are, and it's an intense course. It's, I mean, people can be lazy about it, but even then, like you have to put in all, like you can't fake creativity. So you put in all of that, and then after 5 years, you realize, okay, maybe like I'm more towards theory, or maybe I want to go ahead towards project management or something. So that journey starts after, for a lot of them, starts after 5 years or initial few years of practice. Uh, but when I saw, like when I had peers in my college in Germany, they had like the initial 3 or 4 years max, wherein it's a Bachelor of Art or Bachelor of Architecture. It gives like an overview of what the education is, and after that they were picking their masters. So I was losing out on 2 years. We were in the same classroom, but I was sort of losing. So it also like opened my mind that okay, I'm just wondering if this idea of connecting to what intuitively gives you the spark in this broad field of ours, if it starts right from some elective maybe in architectural education also.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think
yeah,
I would. No, no,
yeah,
sorry.
Pranav, over to
No, I
you.
think I have to speak. This is a very important aspect that you just spoke, because I also speak to a lot of, I mean, students, like, they are a large part of my life. And obviously when they are on the brink of like applying for masters, or they've just out of their education and now they want to figure out what they want to do in life, I always keep on telling them, I think specifically in India, the traditional definition of architecture practice is unfair. Unfair in the sense that it is unfair to expect one person to understand and be good at every aspect of architecture per se, from designing to understanding intricacies to understanding various services or technical aspects of architecture to execution. Like, it is practically impossible for every student in architecture to be excellent at all of these things. Okay, and that is what traditional architecture practice expects from architects, and that is where that gap of, or guild per se, that Sagar is talking about comes from. Like, that you're not probably good at execution, but you will still be expected, when you're once you're into practice, you have to see the project to its full fruition, right? You have to design, you have to deal with like multiple agencies involved, you have to deal with the client, you have to deal with the execution bit of it. And I feel, I mean, I personally, thank God, I realized this early on, that I'm horrible at the execution bit of it. I can't do it. And like moment I used to tell this to anybody, they'll be like, what are you talking about? That means you failed as an architect. To architecture पढ़ के किया क्या, you know? If you don't know how to execute a project,
Yeah.
then why are you an architect? And I have struggled with this question for the longest time. I've been asked by my students also, कि ma'am, you don't practice. Then why are you teaching? Then what are you getting to the table? And I've struck because I wanted an answer to this question, that what am I getting to the table then? Why am I teaching? But then luckily through so many years of like being with students and now realizing my fortes, I think that architecture is so much more than just design and execution. There is so much more. There is skill development, there is management, there is understanding of design, there is creative problem solving, there is storytelling, there is research, you know, that you can be good at. And it's okay if you're bad at either of this, you know. So I think the way you spoke, that we should start looking at the field that way. And if we have to draw a parallel, I would look at medicine. Of course you have to holistically understand architecture, because even if you're specialized in a certain way, you can't completely focus on that, because after all it's a system that works together, like your body. Like, you know, if you might be a specialized cardiologist where you understand the functioning of your heart and stuff, but you still have to understand how the heart works with the entire body. I think it's similar for architecture. And it is high time that architecture academics sort of realizes this and changes this 5-year dumb course that has been going on for ages now. Please change that, like, you know. And we being active academicians, we have been putting in a lot of efforts. Again, like, it's still in hands of people who believe in the traditional definition of architecture practice, but now the time demands something else. And I think um, even though uh, people who are the decision makers for academics or curriculums or, like, you know, things like that are still old school, I'm glad that students or, like, you know, young practitioners have realized this. Keep, you know, boss, I'm good at this and I will, then why not cash on it and actually work with what you're good at? And I think I'm glad people like Rajat or Sagar have found that, you know, you understand what you're good at and work with it. There is nothing wrong in doing that. And I think I on and on I keep telling my students that it's okay if you're bad at design. And it's a shock when I tell that to them. They're like, what? How can I be bad at, I'm in architecture. How can I be horrible at design? I'm like, okay, it's okay. You'll be good at something else. Your job is to find out what that is by the end of 5 years, so that when you're out, you don't fall on your face. There's obviously a lot more to do because you have to sort of strengthen that skill, whatever that is. But I think realization is good enough. It's a good start. So yeah.
Right.
Wow. That's the unfair part, and like it was all like hitting home. Everything that each of you are saying, it's really like hitting home. Um, I think this entire, like in the last 15-20 minutes, we understood where each of us are coming from as a personal journey quest, and also like how it was informing the way you go ahead in your individual practice. Um, I will start with the prompt because
Hmm.
each one of you also mentioned that, Sagar, like for example, you had to explain to your mom, um, Rajat, like, you know, calling yourself as a visualization expert, and Parnavi, like when your students would ask you that, hey, like, you know, what do you bring to the table? Um, do you find any hesitation in calling yourself an architect, like after, because it's not traditional practice? So do you find yourself to become a little hesitant when someone asks you, okay, hey, what do you do? Introduce yourself. Do you still call yourself an architect? Yes or no, or whatever, like your thoughts.
I feel hesitated a bit. Sometimes it feels like okay, someone is judging you a lot. I'm still learning. Maybe I'll be very frank. Whenever we go to exhibition, people do not see you as a content creator because वो field ही नहीं है लोगों के लिए. Nobody thinks that it is a business. It is just fun or it's just a hobby a person is doing. So many a times we go and I introduce myself, give my card and everything. They still like, are you doing interior projects, residential projects, or commercial projects? And how our material, how our product can be beautifully placed in your particular project. And then I'm like, sir, I am this person and I work with brands and elevate their journey or their story in and make content for them. They do not understand that particular thing because most of the brands we go to do not have social media managers there standing there who understand how to do media partnerships with certain influencers. Because nowadays, not only me, but there are architects who are also creating content for their own brand. So there are no managers, which I feel is a gap, because marketing is the most important thing once you go into an exhibition. But there we see salespeople, and but then I feel very bad that okay, now I have to maybe justify I am not doing projects, and वो courage अब तक I don't have to say it out loud.
I feel more proud to be called as a 3D visualizer. Even if you visit my LinkedIn or if you see my visiting card, so there's a tagline below it which says the architect turned visualizer. So why I feel much proud is कि before, जैसे when I was in college life या उससे भी पहले the people who did architecture, I remember जो एक 3D visualizers की पहले एक image थी. Like people used to treat 3D visualizers in a way कि मतलब ये तो वो हैं जिन्होंने सिर्फ they have done some BCom या कोई भी ऐसे BA की डिग्री करी है and then they learn some softwares and मतलब they did not have that respect in the industry because they were not treated like that. कि okay हम इनको समझा देते हैं ये बना देते हैं. So I have heard all this from a lot of people who worked with 3D visual who worked with very senior 3D visualizers. But now I think matlab the one of the main reasons to enter into visualization was to change the game of visualization as well, to maybe earn that respect for the visualization industry. Because see, at the end, जो भी ideas the architects and everything, जो भी designers के दिमाग में जो भी चल रहा है, I think we are the people who bring them alive before it comes to life. Okay. सो आई थिंक कोई भी चीज अपनी सोच को बनाना और किसी और की सोच को समझ के बनाना आर टू डिफरेंट थिंग्स. ओके.
Hmm.
सो एंड आई थिंक किसी और की थिंकिंग डिजाइन प्रोसेस को अंडरस्टैंड करके टू ब्रिंग दैट इन अ वर्चुअल लाइफ, आई थिंक इट्स मच मोर चैलेंजिंग as compared to bringing it over the site, because it's not easy to understand everyone's design language. So
Hmm.
at the end, I feel that visualizers are, and nowadays, जहाँ पे every client, I think 9 out of 10 clients want to see the 3Ds first before. मतलब they do not understand drawings. ठीक है, आप उनको drawings के through convince नहीं कर सकते कि okay, this is your house is gonna look like. They want 3Ds. They are now socially active enough to see Pinterest. Even some of those know AI as well nowadays.
Yeah.
So visualization is the I think is something which is gonna bring work to the designers, and I don't think so कि आप visualization के बिना architects and designers अपने ideas को explain कर पाते.
Right.
I
So I
think,
think, हाँ
yeah,
जी,
no, sorry.
नहीं, please
No, no,
continue.
please finish. No, no, please finish.
I think I just wanted to say that I think that now, obviously, because everything starts with 3Ds and so visualization, मतलब visualization industry deserves that respect, जो as compared मतलब जो एक architecture industry को मिलती.
Right.
But essentially, at the core of it,
Hmm.
Rajat, you are good at what you do, and
Hmm.
Sagar, you're good at what you do because you inherently understand architecture.
Hmm.
Yes.
So it's high time we change the narrative here. Like, I also can communicate about architecture because I understand architecture. So I think we are not doing anything different here. In fact, we are very much still architects. So if
Yeah.
not practicing makes people call me not an architect, then I think we seriously need to redefine the definition of
Yes.
what or who an architect is. We need to rethink about it's not just a job title, it's a mindset. And I think that
Hmm.
is
Wow.
like that sort of responsibility lies with people like us who are showing other people, the young generation, the young practitioners, that architecture is not limited in the set definition that it has always had. It is a lot
Right.
more. It's a mindset. It's a skill set. Okay. And unfortunately, especially in India, the application of this skill set is put forward like a formula, which is A plus B is equal to this only. And that sort of mental or responsibility is on us to tell them ki, no, it's not how it is. Fortunately, Rajat, you can explain other people what other architects think because you first understand what design processes are. I can communicate about architecture practices because I understand architecture practice, and I also understand how a regular audience, non-architectural audience, understands space and design. So I'm the gap, and in fact all of us are that gap in
Yeah.
between the regular audience and architecture. Architecture as a profession itself is a very introverted profession. We
Mm.
always tell our clients, architects design for architects, I think, not for clients, because they're so caught up into the creative act itself that after a point of time they stop being relatable to people who don't understand architecture in terms of jargon, in terms of visualization. And people like Sagar or Rajat or even Zen Communications, I think that is where we come into picture. We try and make architecture not like sound like some intellectual bubble. We're trying to sort of burst it and make it very palpable to anybody. And it should be, because eventually our clientele or people who sort of seek our services are not architects. So it is so crucial and very like in state of emergency that architects wake up from this dream bubble that they live in, that they design for other architects, or at least they feel like, or they the way they carry themselves, the way they project themselves is very non-relatable. So I think that is where like I proudly tell them I'm an architect, and please, this is also what architects do. So please understand, I know a lot of my non-architecture friends don't understand what communications mean. So it's like, so you do ads for architecture practices. I was like, no, we don't do marketing. There is a big difference. Communications and marketing are two different things. Yes, there's a thin line, but they're different. So I will take that time and make them understand that why I'm doing this and how me being an architect is important for what I do. Because if I would have not been an architect, I would have not been good for the architecture practices, because
Mm.
there are communication agencies. But why are they not great? Because they don't understand architecture per se, or the
Right.
problems
Right.
or the challenges that practices face. And I think like we should change the narrative here and be proud of the fact that we are architects, boss. And
Mm.
please look at it architecture like this also. So yeah,
Mm.
next time, Sagar, proudly say that you are an
No,
architect.
no, it is not a
Because
doubt
yeah,
somewhere inside my mind, but it is like you feel bad when people think something different of
because I
you.
don't think they know anything beyond
Yeah.
the way we didn't know that, architecture could be something else or practice could be
So
something
nowadays,
else. So yeah,
nowadays brands is running architecture field more than architects. So that's the narrative they
yeah,
are trying to change a lot. So that's why
yeah,
they just want to sell their products and they have only a single mindset कि अगर कोई बंदा आया है, we just have to sell our products, be it anywhere. So that is the
yeah,
case. And that was me. I being a creator, I could be a lifestyle creator, food blogger or anything, but I wanted to be very close to architecture. And then only I decided I want to educate people regarding architecture, regarding the problems I have faced, what kind of nuisance clients create during the communication with architecture, and what students don't understand materials and everything. And I wanted to create that particular content because I didn't myself understand materials that well when I was studying architecture. I could not execute a project, as you mentioned before, Ravi, that I could not execute a project. I failed doing some my projects of my own. I still have a firm. I have not closed the firm till yet, but I'm not taking that project. But I still felt that I cannot execute project the way anybody else is doing. I cannot communicate that well with vendors or something. And maybe that was my calling, and I pivoted towards it. And yes, I'm having fun now.
yeah. I think it's sort of moving away from the stigma of not being able to do something. I think that's where most of people sort of take a step back. Even though they realize that they are passionate about some aspects about architecture, but this whole thing of, okay, I'm good at this, but I'm bad at this. That bad part of it sort of makes them feel so guilty and bogged down that they don't even like seek the good part or the good aspects or the good skills that, like, they hone or they have. So yeah,
So only thing that would help is if they are lacking something, they have to say it out loud. Then only
yeah,
they will
I think
have the courage to
acceptance,
shift.
yes.
Yeah. वो मन में
Yeah,
like they know inside in their mind that they are not good at it, but they cannot tell to the people around like how frank we three are here, what we are doing. Maybe if they are that frank, okay, they suck at I'm sorry if I can use that, they suck at doing a practice or doing an execution, and they are only good in designing, or they are only good in execution, they are only good in teaching, or they are only good in creating something or telling a story, then only I think that can happen.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Parnavi, for like putting it out there that like the doctor example that you gave. Surprisingly, I use this similar analogy that when I'm explaining to my friends or family now that hey, like if someone studies to be a lawyer or a doctor, doctors are of various types like cardiologist, oh yeah, gyneco. So similarly, I'm just a different type of an architect. So I
I am also going to use it now.
yeah, funnily, it's I swear, funnily I use the similar analogy, and it's just giving me a lot of like when you hear someone else also say it, you find that confidence because as Sagar was also mentioning that we are very open here in this conversation in this room, but when you have to sometimes like talk out there, I personally get hesitant because how the other person is going to judge me that hey like she's not practicing as an architect anymore.
Actually,
But
design.
I would
Yeah.
sorry.
So actually, designing an architecture, content generation is something that takes time. मतलब if you have a project, तो वो you cannot just मतलब वो बनेगा तभी you'll post, and वो जब तक
Right.
बनेगा, so the amount of content you have in architecture and designing fields is very less as compared to lifestyle and fashion.
Yeah. Yeah.
They मतलब we consume those a lot because वो हर दिन या हर alternative day something gets updated. But
Yeah.
architecture is not like that. Architecture contents takes time to develop and then come live on the social media.
I think I would like to disagree with both of you
Same.
here
Yeah.
because unfortunate. I mean, it's see. I know you guys are talking about content, but I think this is exactly where the problem lies. That we look at architecture from the point of doing new projects,
Hmm.
but built environment or space is everywhere. You and me live, whether design like what you call it, designed by an architect or not, you are within space or you are within
Spot on.
spatial built environment. So we can never, ideally we as architects should never say that people don't come across it every day. We come across it every day. We live in a city. Urban design is sort of the larger sort of extension of architecture, and architects ideally should be contributing to our living environment, which involves everybody. All humans today are a part of this larger spatial built environment. So I think architects are the what do you call it, like it's like one job title that is responsible for built environment and space, but built environment and space is a part of every human being's life that inevitably makes an architect a part of every human
Yes.
being's life
I would agree.
eventually. I think that's also something like a conversation that has to be put forward by the fraternity, and we
Hmm.
have to. I know in India, especially, yes, you look up to architects out of respect, but honestly, all the decision making is not done by architects, which is like the unfortunate situation, and hence, it's only limited to individual or private associations with an architect. Like मेरा घर इंटीरियर डिजाइनर ने डिजाइन किया है, ओके, अरे बट व्हाट अबाउट द सिटी दैट यू लिव इन, व्हाट अबाउट पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, व्हाट अबाउट everything else, which is also an eventual extended output of understanding of built environment, that is which ideally is supposed to be done by an architect, like designed by. So
Yes.
I think in India especially, architects are looked like as if I would first of all, like in terms of aspect of money and finance, not everybody can afford to hire an architect to design their homes or like do the interior designs in their houses. Hence they find that it's there's a disassociation with this field, like humko kya karna hai, we have nothing to do with architects or architecture. But again, because I mean, in India, infrastructure, cities, and other public facilities, the role of architects is not there or barely there, or just for the sake of it. Like urban designers are just there for the sake of it. The actual designing and the decision making has been done by somebody who doesn't understand anything about built environment. So this larger scope of architecture, obviously people don't know. And I think it's also up to us to tell them ki look, this is
Yes.
also should come from an architect, should come from an urban designer, should come from an planner or an infrastructure design person. Yes, civil engineers are a big part of it, but design per se, design of environment, design of environments that we live in, public or private or whatever, doesn't matter. They eventually are a part of architecture, and hence it's an everyday thing. So it's like a society can't survive without doctors. Ideally, a society shouldn't be able to survive without architects. That is the crucial contribution of architects, ideally,
Yes. So I
and
would
which
just
is
like to
obviously
add,
doesn't happen in India. So
I would just like to add to the statement which I said, and I think you guys disagree to it, but I wanted just to say that this is not thinking of an architect. This was a thinking of a non-architect who do not understand that well. And that's why I agree to your statement now that we come in and we have to tell them. So when I create content, I focus on few niches I want to create content on. One can be interior designing, one can be telling about the story of a beautiful building. So I closely work with CCBA now, and I talked about the buildings they have designed. I have also talked about urban design projects or how Barcelona was set up, how Chandigarh was set up, how Sydney Opera House was built. So this is, of course, our job to educate in our own capacity how we are doing it. But I would just say that why I said that because people are not consuming that kind of content, or even if I'm saying it loud in some complex or somewhere, people will not appreciate that because that is just in their conscious mind. Okay, they are living in a city, but getting a dress of Sabyasachi would be more good thing for them rather than listening to a boring lecture. That is the perception of people
yeah, i
right
think
now.
i think i think it's about it's see again, it's about the extent in which it's about access. Like when you talk about personal style, it's very accessible, like it's in my
Yes.
hands to govern it. But when it comes to architecture, there are many stakeholders involved in it. But I am experiencing environment individually also. And I
Yes.
think obviously people don't know that architects can contribute to it. Like if I like a certain space, like any space, like a public building or a railway station or a metro station, if I enjoy or if it makes me feel good, people don't really know. They think अरे हाँ तो ये तो engineers ने design किया होगा और ये company ने design किया होगा. But ideally architects are big stakeholders there. So that is what I'm talking about, that we as architects ourselves have to realize or make people or let people see that this is an important role that architects play. And it's an everyday thing. Like if you enjoy a certain space, you have to eventually think about the architect who designed it,
Yes.
because that is
Yes.
where it comes from. Of course there'll be many agencies or many stakeholders who make it happen. It's never an individual effort. But the quality of environment, I think, largely should come from an architect, which obviously is not. But yeah, I get what you're saying. It's step one. We are at step one, where we are at least opening the conversation, and
Yes.
what I'm talking about is probably step 10. So yeah, like it's our job to go from step 1 to 10. So yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Tarjani wanted to speak for a long time. We are not allowing her.
No, I realize where like both side of conversations are, and I wanted to like bring it because we use the word disagree, but it was not meant. So the idea was, I know Sagar, when you said it, I completely understood that you meant it in terms of like people can access a fashion designer as a
Hmm.
service based industry and also as an aspirational quality, people will relate to it. And on the other side of the spectrum, how Parnavi mentioned that it is a part of our everyday life. Like
Hmm.
when we say ke, what are our basic needs, what is the term we use? Roti,
Roti
kapda,
kapda.
makan. So how did that makan, the
Just lose
concept
out.
of, yeah, yeah, and also like how Parnavi earlier also mentioned, we are doing this to ourselves when
Yeah.
I understand like there's a certain language that architects use and there's a certain jargon that goes with it. Similar to how like doctors will use their medical terms and all of that. But in the end, like if the idea is not going across to people who are in the larger stakeholder decision making and whose daily lives are going to be affected, then yeah, like it's something we have to relook at. Because in if I remember these like courses we had as an architecture student, history and humanities, and there was a lot of readings around like vernacular knowledge, traditional forms of building. I think Rajat was also mentioning, someone mentioned this earlier, traditional architecture. The point being that, again, like I'm taking fashion as an example. People will know bandhani, people will know Kanjivaram silk, etc., etc. But there is literally like if I have to say, Jaipur mein mahal hai, like it stops at a very small level. Like as a language, in the way we communicate, also, we are losing out on that relatability quotient with all if I have to talk to my mom also, I have to really like be like, hey, like don't go in architect's jargon and make it something that will excite her, that will include her in the conversation. So yeah, we were actually talking about the same
The
thing,
same
but
thing.
from
Different
different
person.
vantage points. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, Rajat, did I cut you in?
No, no.
No. Okay. Okay. Um, should we move on to the next prompt?
Yes.
Because in the first prompt, we discussed how the idea of traditional practice didn't really work. How do you identify or not identify as an architect? How do you respond when people say, oh, you don't design buildings? So the second prompt is, which was covered as a part of your introduction, of how did you take the leap of leaving traditional idea of practice and forging your own path. But in that process, each one of you, because all of you are catering to a different niche, did you come across any role models or any examples, be it India or abroad, or did a master's journey help you? Was there access to mentorship? Like, so what was the largest spark behind taking this call and shifting full time into this?
I think should I speak or somebody else wants
Yeah.
to?
So,
Please.
so just to give an example, like how we were mentioning that even when students graduate, they have like this perception that अब तो मुझे office join, I have to join an office and I have to work first as a junior intern, then a junior architect, etc. So there is like this perception, right? Like once you graduate as an architect, this is the sort of path you'll take, or maximum they will know about the do a master's and become an urban designer, or something to do with sustainability. Like this, that triad is where usually things are. So just to, I'm trying to like expand that perspective, that perception a bit, and what helped you do that in your personal journey.
I think it's probably a cliche to say this, but I think my biggest mentors have been my experiences. Yes, I had a plan. Yes, I had it like I mentors or like people I used to look up to, architects. But since my original plan of practicing or working was thrown out of the window the moment I started going for interviews, that also sort of changed. And every new experience taught me something, that is obviously the mentors remain, your ideals remain, but your current situations always demand something very different at that point of time. And I just kept on answering that calling. And I think that is what has helped me move ahead. That doesn't mean I don't have ideals. That doesn't mean that I don't look up to people. I look up to different people for different things. Like obviously I have architects that I like really that their work I really enjoy, and I talk about it a lot to my students. But at the same time I know that's very specific about a certain thing. If I have to talk about entrepreneurship, I'll talk about something else. If I have to talk about storytelling, I'll talk about something else. So I think for me that is what it has been. There's no one mentor, there has been no one ideal, no one example that I can tell or like speak of today. It has been multiple things, and my personal experience have been the biggest like sort of learning, or you call them mentors or whatever. So literally I've learned by falling on my face. So that's what it is. So when I have done it multiple times, I've sort of become a little more easy in accepting when I fall, which happens even today very often. Like, I mean, it's again, as I said, it's very cliche. People say that your life is going to be full of struggles, but it is. It is what it is. That's how it is, and it's just that through time, you just get better at tackling it, or at least you are mentally prepared for it. Even if you are not good at it, you are mentally prepared. Okay, it is going to pass. And there is obviously then the time for contemplation and looking back, saying ki, what did I learn? And I have learned to do this, at least that look back, and there's obviously some learning that comes out of it, especially like I'm talking about my career journey, not my personal life. But at this point I think both intermingle very often. My personal life makes me who I am in my profession, and my professional life makes me who I am in my personal life. Like, especially after becoming a parent, motherhood has influenced so much of me being a teacher. Like my teaching takes so much from my personal parenting, and my parenting borrows so much from my like teaching experiences. It prepares me to, I wouldn't say be a better parent. Never. That's never, as I said, every step is a new curveball that you're never prepared for. But like I understand that there is always 10 different perspectives that you should look at a situation. You should look at a situation, and there are different lenses. I have learned to look for those lenses. Okay, wait, am I looking at it correctly? Is there another way to understand the situation? Of course this comes with a lot of panic, a lot of stress. That's that. But yeah, I think so. Yeah, for me it's not one person. There is no single role model. I don't think I can mention one. So
No, but thank you so much, Parnavi. I I really like look up to the fact and love the fact that you mentioned that personal and professional are intertwined, because that is also like in like Sabyasachi recently completed the 25-year journey, right? And all the storytelling around his 25-year journey, like I started with 20,000 investment, and it was very humane. That be it a designer, non-creative, anyone could relate to him. But architects, I feel like we don't do that very often. We don't show that personal human side of us very often, of what starts shaping up our path. And yes, of course, uh, different stages of life that you're in also brings a huge factor into your decision making of your personal journey. And I do believe that we need more conversations wherein we talk about how the personal and professional is intertwined. So
I think I
thank
think
you very
that's
much.
very true for women. I mean, I'm not trying to be sexist here, but more so true for women. But the way you
Yeah,
said that, I think it's across professions. It's not particularly architecture, but specifically architecture has its own set of gender, sexist behavior or whatever you call it. But I think slowly the narratives are changing. So yeah,
I thank you for saying that also, because this gender dynamic, even though we don't want it to exist, I can't be like, कि अरे, for me it
yeah.
doesn't exist, so in the society it doesn't exist. ऐसा नहीं होता है. And it is there no matter I mean our movies reflect it, our statistics reflect it. So
Yeah.